Katie, it is great to see you. And first of all, happy birthday here on December 18th. How's everything going as we get ready for what's a very special week for Alabama athletics?
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's going good. It's always a crazy time of year having a December birthday right before Christmas, but it makes it even more fun too.
So, Alabama's in the first round of the college football playoff. In your coverage of the Crimson Tide over the past couple weeks, how have you seen Kalen DeBoer and this group really try and hit the reset button after that disappointing loss in Atlanta?
Yeah, I kind of joked with some people in the media room. I think it was on Tuesday. We were talking before this with the schedule of this week. It's hard to know what day it was, but whatever day it was that we talked to the coordinators, they both seemed in like a really good mood. Like we're really kind of joking light with the media that I don't know. It does seem like they've been able to reset. Obviously, a big point has been the health. Some guys that have been dealing with injuries that needed time to just rest and be off their feet for a couple of days that you just can't do in the middle of the grind of an SEC schedule when you're fighting for a playoff spot. You can't really sit out. I think we saw that against Eastern Illinois. Maybe some guys sit out and try and rest that game, but then you're right back in it with Iron Bowl. You're right back in it with the SEC title, and they can't rest. So they've been able to get a little bit of rest, even though Alabama has like the shortest break of any playoff team, just with playing in the conference championship weekend and then playing on Friday. But and then I think there also has been a mental reset because it was obviously not the strongest finish to the season. You're coming off probably your worst performance of the season and weren't necessarily playing your best before that. But I think this team has shown us at times this year that they can beat and compete with anyone in the country. And so I think having that mental and physical reset is going to be good for them.
Obviously, the Crimson Tide getting healthier really helps things, but what else do you feel like can contribute to this offense, maybe getting back to the rhythm or on track that we saw early in the season when Alabama was on a roll?
Yeah, I think having some cohesiveness along the offensive line, and then I think getting Jay Miller back is obviously a big deal, which I think he would probably say he hasn't had the season he wanted this year, and part of that's been because of injuries. But really, if you look at Alabama's numbers last time when they played Oklahoma, they actually did run the ball pretty well, and that's been one of their biggest struggles this season is running the ball and creating balance in the offense. So I think if that's something that they're able to do, and I'm not even talking about like a 200-yard running performance or even 150, but just to be able to create a little bit of balance so there's not as much pressure on Ty Simpson, especially in a road environment, especially against one of the best defensive fronts in the country. I mean, Oklahoma leads the country in sacks and tackles for loss, I think. And so they put a lot of pressure on you. So if you're able to run the ball, create a little bit of balance, I think that'll be really big for this offense.
What were some of the talking points on the defensive side of the ball, especially from Coach Womack earlier this week?
It definitely seems like the biggest thing they're emphasizing is turnovers, but he corrected me. It's not turnovers, it's takeaways because takeaway implies that they took the ball away. Turnover implies it could have just been given to them. However it happens, they want to get some turnovers this week. In the last matchup with Oklahoma, they lost the turnover battle 3-0. And Coach Womack said this week that they cannot walk out of there again -3 in the turnover battle. I think if that happens again, obviously they're probably going to lose. And this team, really under Womack's with his swarm D philosophy, has been pretty good both seasons at turning the opposition over. Both times they haven't this year, they've lost against Oklahoma and then in the SEC title game against Georgia. So I think that's a big thing for them. He said, they've been practicing it a ton. He thinks they're more ready than they've ever been to create turnovers. They're looking for that. He said there's kind of a different mentality in just going and trying to tackle the ball carrier and get him to the ground and trying to get the ball away from him. So I think we're going to see a really big emphasis on that, or we have seen that. And then, John Mateer is a guy that's susceptible to it. He has 10 interceptions this season. Alabama was not able to turn him over the first time, but he's a guy that kind of, when he gets flustered, can make mistakes. And I think this defense has the ability to definitely do that this weekend.
Alabama just lost in a rematch setting against Georgia, a team they previously defeated earlier this year in Athens. And now it's kind of the reverse, getting ready for Oklahoma, a team that defeated Alabama in November in Tuscaloosa. Has there been much talk of revenge or anything like that as serving as added motivation for this playoff game?
I feel like the players haven't really talked about that a ton. I'm sure there is that factor in mind, as well as the fact that they lost in the same venue last year. And there's a lot of players that are on the team that played in that game and experienced that killed their playoff chances last year by losing at Oklahoma. So they haven't really talked about it a ton. I'm sure it is a little bit of a motivation. And I think kind of a difference from the Georgia rematch is that first Georgia game was, 1 month into the season. So there was a huge gap between games. This previous Oklahoma matchup was just a month ago. So it's not like there's a ton different with these teams besides maybe some of the players that are available or unavailable because of health. There's the whole season of film to watch on both, and they just faced each other. So I think, and really you look at that previous matchup, I think if you look at any of these five plays, three turnovers, the punt return, and the missed field goal. I think if any one of those five goes differently, Alabama wins the game. And you can't do ifs, ands, and buts and hypotheticals. They did lose, but I think they played well in that previous matchup. It's not like, oh, we just got killed by Oklahoma. We got to figure out how to fix it. It's like, no, they really just need to keep doing the things they did and probably win the turnover battle. And I think they're going to be in good shape.
So it's Alabama against Oklahoma coming up on Friday. That, of course, has been the focus of your coverage, but you've also had to look at Alabama's head coach, Kalen DeBoer, and a lot of the outside noise with the Michigan job opening. How have you seen him try to address it, both with the statement and in the press conference this week?
Yeah, it was kind of the timing of when we talked to him and then when all that came out, because I think we had an initial Zoom with him on Sunday, like when Alabama got in the playoff. And then I don't know if maybe we talked to him on Thursday. I don't know. There was a gap. We talked to the players on Friday and we weren't going to talk to Kalen again until Monday and kind of when the news broke with Michigan having the opening. And I think it's a sign of respect and a good thing for Alabama fans that Kalen's name is being tied to these huge job openings, that he is one of the best coaches in college football that's coveted by other programs. And so he released the statement to kind of get out ahead of it before he talked to the media in person. And then he was asked directly on Monday, didn't necessarily answer directly. So he was asked with a follow up, will you be the coach next year? And he said yes. So I think he does want to be at Alabama. And then he does, want to also be locked in and focus on the playoff and not worried about kind of his name being tied to other jobs.
It's been a very busy week for the Alabama media with all these press conferences in Tuscaloosa and on Zoom, like you mentioned. But one really cool moment we got to see was Charlie Potter serving as the spokesman for the media, giving out the Good Guy Award from the media to Deontay Lawson for everything he has meant and the coverage that you all have had this year. Just what went into Deontay being selected. And obviously, that was a really cool honor when and he seemed very appreciative when he heard that from Charlie.
Yeah, for sure. I would say Deontay was probably the media good guy. And then also, if we gave out a most improved, he would probably be that as well. Because, I mean, he's an older guy, obviously, a captain, a redshirt senior. He's been around. But some guys have the personality that they're always like a Terrion Arnold. Like, he loves to be in front of the media, loves to be talking. Some guys are like kind of nervous, even when we're in scrum style and can, mumble or not know what to say or be worried they're going to say the wrong thing. And I feel like that was maybe Deontay at one point. And then this season, I feel like he's just been super thoughtful with his answers, especially after losses. That's never an easy position to be in, is to have to come speak to the media after the team loses or doesn't perform well. And a lot of times the captains are called on to come do that after they do lose. And so, yeah, he just gives a lot of guys can give canned answers, which that's kind of what they're trained to do. We understand that, or can kind of be flippant with what they say, but you could tell a lot of times he was giving thoughtful answers, and we obviously appreciate that in the media when they're taking time to give us to actually answer what we asked instead of just ignoring it, brushing it off, or saying something quick. And then he, would give good insight too on Alabama and the opponent when we would ask questions like that as well.
That was really great to see. It's all been part of a really busy week for the media covering Alabama basketball as well. You're in Birmingham for the game against Arizona. Maybe not the best second half for the Crimson Tide, but a good response last night against South Florida. Just your thoughts on this basketball team as we get close to the end of non-conference play.
Yeah, they're another team that's had to deal with the health a lot. And, I asked Nate about that before Arizona. And kind of how that can benefit this team is that it's given a lot of the freshmen playing time and experience that they probably wouldn't have gotten if everyone's healthy, which I think will be important as they enter SEC play and then especially down the stretch and get into postseason. But they're kind of like football in that they've shown that they can compete with and beat some of the best teams in the country, but they also have to, I mean, Nate's biggest thing for sure right now is the rebounding and the effort. And so I think the good thing about that is that that's something that's fixable. You can just, decide to give more effort, get better on the glass. It's not like it's a talent issue. And so I think once again, NATO just put together a good roster that's going to make some noise in SEC play.
And of course, you also cover Alabama women's basketball as part of your Crimson Flame podcast, so we'll talk about in a moment. But Christy Curry and the Crimson Tide now a perfect 13-0, and if they get a win on Sunday against Troy, that means a perfect start to the year heading into SEC play.
I know they just keep rolling, and then I think based on the name or conference of the opponent with Troy on Sunday, you might not think that that's or people might not think that that's, the best quality, but Troy is a really quality mid-major. They're, I think, 12-1 on the season or something like they've or 10-1 maybe. They've only lost once, and have looked really good this year. So it's a big game, a big opportunity to kind of continue that win streak and be in a really good position heading into SEC play where they've given themselves a little more margin for error maybe in the conference to get some good seeding for the NCAA tournament and kind of continue what they've done the last couple of years and build on those NCAA tournament trips.
Since the last time we talked to you, you've launched a podcast, as I mentioned, Crimson Flame, focusing on Crimson Tide women's athletics. What have you enjoyed about the podcast this fall, and also kind of carving out a unique space focused on women's athletics here at Alabama?
Yeah, it's been really fun to get to tell some stories of people that maybe didn't get to while they were here or that don't while they're here. I've gotten to talk to some current athletes, current coaches, some former athletes. And so, yeah, I obviously cover women's sports. Grew up watching them and supporting them, so it's just kind of fun to tell those stories and hear from former athletes kind of how their journey of how they got to Alabama because I think it's something that people don't necessarily understand. They know a ton about football recruiting and probably a little bit about basketball recruiting, but maybe don't realize that, which the rules have changed, but that a gymnast started getting recruited in seventh grade and that they trained, 30 hours a week as a middle schooler. And just to be a gymnast at Alabama, at a place like Alabama, and to compete for SEC and national titles. So, and it's not just gymnastics, it's all the sports. And hopefully by the end of the athletic calendar, I'll have had somebody on from every sport or kind of a touch point with every women's sport because Alabama does have really talented athletes and really good teams all across the spectrum. I mean, you see in cross country, Doris Lemon-Golay winning national titles and pretty much whatever event she does, she's going to win. So you have a strong cross country program. Obviously, softball and gymnastics are nationally known. Then you have, golf has won national titles. You have individuals in sports like swimming and track and tennis, doubles that have won national titles. So there's a lot of good stories out there and really talented athletes that maybe don't get as much coverage. But I also know there's some women's sports like softball that, has 200,000 followers on Twitter alone and that has a huge fan base that people care about a lot. And so maybe just kind of helping bring people along to some of the other sports that they don't know as much about.
Really encourage fans to check it out. Well, Katie, safe travels with everything coming up. A busy time of the year, as we mentioned. And again, happy birthday as you get ready for Alabama against Oklahoma in the college football playoff. We look forward to seeing you down the road. Thank you again for your time on the Crimson Tide Sports Network.
Thank you, Roger.